This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, you gotta work. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're gonna feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome, welcome, one and all. Lembit Öpik here on Lembit Öpik Live, coming to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. I'm here to talk about the station, Unprecedented TV, and I hope you like and subscribe to it on YouTube. And we've got some pretty high rollers who are talking with us about freedom of speech and what we stand for. And I'm saying to them here at Unprecedented TV, we're ruthless with facts and gracious with commentary. And it seems to be a message which resonates with a freer country than the United Kingdom. So thank you in advance to all of you for your good wishes. I know you're sending them my way, as I have a whole schedule of meetings here in Washington, D.C. at Unprecedented TV. I want to talk about something else which is relevant to a building not far from where I am based here in Pentagon City. That's right, the Pentagon itself is pretty much visible from my window, and it's a beautiful sight, I have to say. Who knows what shenanigans go on in there, but one subject I'm sure they talk a lot about is the continuing malaise facing Volodymyr Zelensky in the Ukraine conflict with Russia. That conflict is not going well for Ukraine. There are millions dead, and mysteriously, it seems to have all but fallen off the mainstream media's reportage. Why is that? And is there any hope for the Ukrainians to turn the tables and win what must be looking like a very difficult campaign at the moment? Joining me now is probably the best commentator I know anywhere in the world on this. It's Warren Thornton. I'm in Washington. You're just next to Manila in the Philippines. How are you doing?
Absolutely fine, Lembit. And can I just turn around and say, have a great time in Washington. It is obviously a great place to be. And of course, I hope you're very successful.
Well, for all our sakes, I hope that I am too. It's beautiful. It's covered in snow. It's absolutely stunning, I have to say. The White House does create such an impressive image, and the Pentagon itself as well. So it seems like a fitting time for us to talk about the American status when it comes to the Ukraine situation. But I've noticed a lot of headlines recently, and these headlines refer to something which you can explain. It says essentially, or it seems to be telling me, that there's some kind of backtracking by the Americans. All unverified Starlink terminals will be disconnected in Ukraine, Defense Minister says. But maybe it's not backtracking, but it seems to be some kind of an offensive which is affecting Elon Musk's Starlink. What's all this about?
They have a real problem, because what's happening is the Ukrainians use Starlink almost exclusively to launch their drones. Now, the problem is that Russia are breaking into the Starlink and using Starlink to guide their own drones to the target. And of course, very successful they have been too. And of course, now Elon Musk has had to slow down Starlink. So any drones that are used only travel anywhere between 75 to 90 mile an hour, making them easier to shoot out of the air. The big problem that they have here, of course, that just makes Ukraine's drones much easier to shoot out of the air as well. So, of course, Russia will keep breaking into, or keep able to piggyback their drones onto the Starlink terminals and use Starlink, or Ukraine's, shall we say, guidance system against them themselves.
So, hang on. What you're telling me is that both sides are using the same system. They're both using Starlink to attack each other. How can that be?
Well, the Russians can use their own one, but they find that Starlink obviously is quite easy to piggyback onto. So very simply, they will use that as well. And of course, the Russians are, as they move forward, starting to lay, should we say, optic cables and everything else for their own drones and everything else. But when they want to launch deep inside of Ukraine, and they can put 1,000 drones in the air. And at the moment, yes, they can put 1,000 drones a day in the air.
That's phenomenal. And how many of them get through?
I would say around about 80% of them get through. The Ukrainian air defenses, people would tell you, oh, they're very good and everything else. They're not. They're completely degraded. They have a hodgepodge now of systems. So they have like a Patriot battery here and one of those batteries there and one of those batteries there. And they try to interlink them. Now, they're still quite capable of bringing drones down. They even managed to bring down, for the very first time, an Iskander the other day. But that was because they launched a load of, shall we say, air defenses at once. But also, problem is they put these air defenses near civilian areas. And, of course, when they do bring something down, then it all comes crashing down on the civilian infrastructure rather than have them on the outskirts of the towns and cities. And of course, try to take them down there. But by doing that, of course, they make them far more easy for the Russians to target. So they're in between the sort of devil and the deep blue sea, really.
Yeah, well, I'm just around the corner from the Pentagon. I have to say, it's beautiful snow here. Absolutely fantastic. I didn't take this picture, but it does really look like that. I'm more or less next to where you can see the road on the right-hand side there with the four rings. So Pentagon City. I'm wondering if this means there's some sort of a development between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because of course Elon Musk owns Starlink, or do you think he's just obliged to do it as a US citizen?
I mean, Musk and Trump are getting on okay. I mean, Musk went a bit over the top the other day in his criticism of Trump, and then, of course, backtracked on it. So they're getting on okay. I was noticing from the weather there, of course, you get the, shall we say, the snow there and everything else. People are talking, people in the Pentagon and people in the White House are talking about a massive offensive that the Russians are going to launch over the next week or two into Ukraine. And this is the reason why they need more funding and everything else. It just goes to show how detached they are from this, because, of course, the Russians won't launch any counteroffensive while the weather is so bad in Ukraine. And then, of course, we have the spring where it's the muddy season and almost nothing can move. So they basically won't be launching anything until maybe late April, early May, when it comes to any huge offensives. They'll just keep taking and chipping away at Ukraine as they go.
Yeah, the snow, it's actually very beautiful. It's difficult as well. I was walking through this, and it's actually the snow, and on top of it, it's actually melted and frozen. So it's just that Washington is entirely a skid pan at the moment. I'm sure loads of people are falling over. But at the same time, they make do. If we had 8 inches of snow in Britain, I'm sure the whole thing would come crashing down. I guess you don't get snow in the Philippines.
No, but here's a tip for you, and we learned this on army maneuvers. If you want to walk in the snow, you look ridiculous, but you won't slip over. You walk like the penguins walk.
I was doing that automatically, I think. And I just ended up walking up the road. Actually, the roads are completely clear. They seem to know what they're doing there. Let's talk about the Zelensky character. Zelensky has territorial agreements. It's impossible without direct contact with Putin. Now, I don't understand why he's saying that. What's he getting at?
Well, he's talking absolute nonsense. So Zelensky has put forward the idea that we can't discuss any territory, and the territory that they do want to have, we won't give any territorial concessions whatsoever. Well, you can either give territorial concessions or they will take it. What you have to remember is the Russians are very loath to give anything to Zelensky, given that he keeps breaking any agreements that he has. I mean, take the recent ceasefire, where, of course, the Russians gave them, and this is where I would take issue with Putin. Donald Trump asked Putin if he could have a week where they don't bomb Kiev. So Putin said, absolutely fine, we'll do it till the 1st of February. And of course, yesterday, the Ukrainians launched tons and tons of drones into Russia. So every time they give a little bit of a concession to either America or Ukraine or Zelensky, of course, they abuse the privilege and have done ever since the Minsk agreements. So Zelensky saying he's not going to agree to any territorial agreements. Well, you don't have to. Very simply, they'll just take it.
Yeah, it does seem to me he's on a very sticky wicket. The other thing I feel this is suggesting is that Zelensky sees himself as an equal to Vladimir Putin. He's nothing of the sort. Yeah. He's a professional clown. He's a joker. He's not a politician.
No, and he wants this because, of course, if he meets with Putin, and Putin will avoid this like the plague, this gives Zelensky legitimacy because Putin has already said that he's not the legitimate ruler of Ukraine or the legitimate prime minister of Ukraine. And of course, when you see the contacts that they're having, of course, between Russia and Ukraine, very much now we've downgraded. So we've got generals going to do the meetings now. There is not, the Americans aren't there. Putin's not going to be there. Lavrov's not there. Even some of the, shall we say, the minor, or shall we say, just underneath people like Lavrov are not there. They're sending generals. So it's very much low key and very low level for the Russians. And of course, the Ukrainians are not happy about that either.
Yeah, well, it's tough, really. I have to say that I think Zelensky's proved himself to being incapable, but the death toll keeps going up. Tell us about this.
Yes, absolutely. So the new figures have come out, and there was a graph that I showed earlier on our channel, which just goes to show how many Ukrainians are actually dying in the latest transaction, shall we say, of bodies. Ukraine were handed back 1,000 of their men who'd been killed by the Russians, and the Ukrainians handed back the Russians just 38 bodies. Now, this has been mounting and mounting and mounting. Over the course of the war, it's gone from round about even to 8-1 to 16-1. And now we've got 25 Ukrainians dying for every Russian. To give you a heads up, Lembit, 3,333 Russian bodies have been handed back by the Ukrainians since the start of the conflict. And very simply with the Ukrainians, over 28,000 have been handed back.
That's just phenomenal. What?
Yes.
I know the reason, but just share why so many more Ukrainians. Why should anyone believe your figures? Why would so many more Ukrainians be dying versus as you say, the Russians? Because the mainstream media says it the other way around.
Yeah, mainstream media is talking absolute nonsense. So what has happened, and you can see by the people that are fleeing the country, and I'll give you three factors why our figures are correct and the mainstream media is rubbish. And I'll do that at the end of it. So basically what happened is at the start of the war, it was about even. And then the Russians took Bakhmut. And that was when it really started to change. And the Russians started to rethink because the Battle of Bakhmut sorted them out. They lost 15,000 troops in the Battle of Bakhmut, and the Ukrainians lost 120,000. It was about 8-1. And of course, then we had the Wagner group who were just sending waves of men into there. And then the Russians started to rethink how they surrounded cities, just left one road open. The Ukrainians would try and use that road, and they would annihilate the Ukrainians. Now, over the course of the 4-year war, the Russian tactics have developed a lot better. And of course, more Ukrainians have died. And then, of course, you have the idiocy of throwing the people that they're capturing, beating up, throwing into vans, chucking them onto the front line. Their best soldiers are already dead. And of course, if you're a new boy or a new grunt, as they say, going onto the front line, your life expectancy is a lot lower than a soldier who knows the pitfalls, who knows what he's looking at, and he's well versed, shall we say, a veteran in the art of war, especially with drone wars going on and everything else. So you develop these abilities if you survive. Trouble is, the Ukrainians are not surviving long enough at all.
How much training do these people get?
Well, literally, the ones that are thrown onto the front line, of course, will probably get about a week's training, and that's if they can be bothered to go at all. Because remember, they're beaten up, thrown into vans. When they get to the recruitment centre, they're beaten up again. By the time they get on the front line, they're not trusted by the other soldiers because they don't want to be there. And of course, they're not given too many weapons, should we say, because half of them would turn around and shoot their own commander.
Really? Is it that bad?
Yeah, I mean, the other day we showed a video of 2 Ukrainians surrendering to a Russian drone, and literally the commander behind them shot both of the soldiers. So this is going on, and the West are paying no attention to it. But I'll give you 3 reasons why it is our figures are correct. First of all, they've drafted over 60-year-olds. They've had 3 of these, shall we say, drafts and everything else. You don't, when you are beating people up and throwing them into vans and dragging them off the street while they're screaming their heads off, that's not conducive to you winning a war. Secondly, they are repatriating people from America and Germany. They're being met at the border and thrown onto the front line. And of course, they've tried to entice lots and lots of people and have started grabbing people over 60 and putting them on the front line. If you are winning, Lembit, you are not doing this.
Stay with us. You're watching me, Lembit Öpik, from Washington, D.C., here in the United States of America, talking with Warren Thornton, who is our ace commentator on the Ukraine war. He's in the Philippines. Isn't it amazing what we can do and our teams in the United Kingdom? Of course, as Warren rightly says on his show, this isn't the only program that you can watch. We have an outstanding series called Dire Consequences with Claire Dyer. Claire Dyer there takes local issues of national concern, and she really pushes it. I have nothing but admiration for Claire, and do please watch her shows. And you'll find the archive at Unprecedented TV on YouTube, and please do like and subscribe. For now, though, we're with Warren Thornton, who's in the Philippines, myself in Washington. Warren, here's a picture which I actually took, and it looks beautiful. People seem to be able to survive the snow here, and even though I love telling everybody this, Dr. David Viner from the University of East Anglia said 26 years ago that children just aren't going to know what snow is. I think there are 200 million people in America who might disagree with that. This one's for you. Can you name that aircraft? It's at the Smithsonian Institution.
No, I cannot.
It is the X-15. 3 were built. It holds the world record for an aircraft in terms of altitude and speed, 354,000 feet. It went up to, anyway, it Mach 6.7, over 6 times the speed of sound. And it still holds those records, even though they were set in the 1960s. And that is one of the most impressive aircraft ever built. So I was there having a look just for you. And you mentioned people being put into the front line in the 60s. I went to the planetarium. It's just in the background in that picture. She charged me $9 to go in. It was only afterwards I realized that was the senior rate. I'm getting on. I took it. I was because apparently she just looked at me and knew I was 60. Amazing. So yeah. Anyway, it's very impressive. And for those who think that Washington must be awash with drug addicts and people, folks here are happy. They are just happy, and they're polite, and the food's good. You know, you can eat junk if you want to, but it's a very agreeable place.
I've got to say, when you're talking about over 60s, and I'm that side of it myself, here in the Philippines, they actually have they venerate the old people, because if there is actually a line at supermarkets and post offices and everything else where you can go and you get priority service because you're over 60.
I might come there next. Who knows? More than likely, actually. And we both know why. But you, dear viewers, will have to wait and see. Warren's fixing up something pretty special. That'll be a special trip. Let's get back to what we were discussing, the death toll in Ukraine. Ukraine peace talks laid after Russia and US meet. It was unclear why the latest round of negotiations, which had been expected on Sunday, was postponed for several days. That's actually a slightly older story, but it tells the tale that you were saying, that it seems to me that Donald Trump has gone off the boil with Ukraine. He's expressed frustration about Zelensky, and at Zelensky, apparently there was lots of foul language. The last time Zelensky went to visit Trump in the White House. What's going on? Has Zelensky blown his relationship with Trump?
Oh, he never really had a relationship with Trump. It was a case of the American expediency needs this to be over, because it has a problem coming up in 2020, at the start of 2027, when the elections happen, obviously in Taiwan, and they want to be free of the Iran situation. They definitely want to be free of the Ukraine situation. And in fact, the European Union have given the game away, because they've turned around and said, we need to be ready and in a position to fight Russia in 2027. Well, that's never going to happen, because the European Union is about as useless, honestly, about as useful as an ashtray on a motorbike. Now, the problem that we have here is, of course, as America want to divulge themselves over to the Pacific to deal with the China-Taiwan problem, they need to step away from Ukraine, and they need Ukraine to come to some sort of ceasefire and some sort of agreement with the Russians. Now, the Americans have sent Witkoff and Kushner over there to do a deal, and they're talking sort of money from minerals and various economic packages. The Ukrainians are talking ceasefires, and the Russians are talking, you've not demilitarized, you're not making sure that they definitely can't be in NATO. And the biggest problem, which Lavrov came out with the other day, is you are not making denazification one of your priorities. Indeed, it's become more, shall we say, neo-nationalized, with the promotion, of course, of not only Budanov, who was the head of the SBU, which is the Ukrainian Secret Service, and he's a known, shall we say, neo-nationalist, but also Christopher Freeland, who was once Canada's deputy prime minister, has now gone over and is now part of Zelensky's cabinet, looking after the finances. And we all know that her grandfather was a dyed-in-the-wall, shall we say, neo from the 1930s.
Well, we are looking at the figures here as well. I've never understood why this denazification thing has been such a big problem for them. Why can't you just agree? Just we don't want Nazification in Ukraine. Either it's not there or it shouldn't be there. Those are the two options. And I just don't see why the West can't simply say we agree with this one. There's no need for it, but we agree with this one. They could say that, but they won't.
Well, we have a big problem with this, Lembit, because, of course, 2,000 of these, Operation Paperclip, 2,000 of these, should we say, back in the day, the rather nasty Nazis, they were actually, they went to Canada and they settled in Ottawa. So there's a big contingent of them there. And in fact, some of the schools were actually in trouble for throwing up, should we say, signs back from the 1930s of football matches. There are war memorials to Ukrainian neo-Nazis there and everything else. And of course, you have to remember that we have a Ukraine Youth Association in Great Britain, which has 10 branches in 10 different cities. Now, they've even got the uniforms that look like somewhere between the Boy Scouts and, of course, the Hitler Youth that used to be there. They've even got the brown shirts, Lembit, and they celebrate Stepan Bandera, who was a well-known collaborator with the German regime back in the 1930s.
Whole subject, the whole conversation to be had there. Let's talk about these figures, though. Over 168 Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine. identified by media investigation. That's a recent story. If you were to watch the mainstream media, and only the mainstream media, you would get the impression that Russia's hemorrhaging troops.
Yes.
My team was researching for the show, and they found figures like 1.2 million, all these different figures, tons of different figures, all focused on Russian losses, very little on Ukrainian ones.
Yeah, they don't want to tell you about this. So the figure of 168,000 Russian soldiers dead is pretty close and pretty correct. But you have to remember that there's 2.1 million Ukrainians dead. So you are talking around about 14, 15 to 1 over the course of the entire war. And of course, many of those soldiers have been buried. Many of those soldiers have been put into ovens and burnt so that they don't have to pay the money to the families. And of course, we have seen the mass cemeteries and everything else. And even the Ukrainians turned around and said that they only had, on January the 1st of last year, they only had 925,000 troops left. Now, just get this, for instance, Lembit. There was 82,000 Ukrainian troops in the army before 2022. Then, at the height of the summer offensive in 2023, 1 million in the army, 1.2 million in reserve. That's 2.2 million. They've since had 3 conscriptions where they've got people into the army. That's another 1.4 million, making 3.6 million. Add another 400,000 that have been beaten up and thrown on the front line, plus 100,000 mercenaries. That's 4.1 million men. There are 750,000 that are injured. There are 250,000 that have deserted. There are 100,000 in captivity. That leaves you with around 3 million. 2.1 million dead, 900,000 left. Just about worked out exactly right with the Ukrainian figures that the Ukrainians gave them themselves.
It's awful. It really is. It's awful. I tend to believe your figures. My opinion is that your figures are pretty accurate. What of Starmer in his endless claims that he's going to help Ukraine and so on? Obviously, Starmer's, sorry, this may not be obvious, but to me it's obvious. My opinion is that Starmer's cachet has gone through the floor, really. He's not cutting it here. I don't think he had a particularly impressive visit to China. And you don't see him meeting with his little buddy Vladimir Zelensky so much anymore. Has he got any relevance?
No, because he needs to distance himself from Zelensky for a few weeks because, of course, there's been a 5th man arrested in the burning and this shall we say, ongoing thing of the Ukrainian male models. The other day, there was a 5th man arrested, of course. The 4th man that they arrested was released on his own recognizance and wasn't charged. But we've still got these 3 guys that are going to go.
So a guy has been, so there's 4th, they're the 3 original ones.
3 originals.
Yeah.
Then a 4th was arrested. And the other day, just the other day, a 5th man that was thought to be implicated in this was also been arrested and has been released at the moment.
Not very strange.
Yes.
We're certainly not seeing that. Yeah, I think it's actually genuine in the national interest for us to know what's been going on there. We have to know, because if there's nothing to see, then we should know that. If the Prime Minister has been in real danger, we should, oh, it's so cringy that. He starts hugging. It's just so unprofessional. Look at them. It's like Starmer just doesn't know what he's doing, and Zelensky just doesn't look. He just doesn't look the part. He always dresses in these strange ways. I'm no great dresser myself, but if I was the Prime Minister of a country or the President of a country, I'd probably try a little bit harder.
Just have a look at the cat there, Lembit. He's not having a bar of it either, and takes off in a different direction. Here's the thing, though, Lembit, and of course. Keir Starmer is the gift that keeps on giving. He's never been about Great Britain. He's always been a globalist. He's always meddling in other people's affairs in other countries. And he is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, in China, he has looked so out of his depth. It's incredible. Yeah. He's actually been moved by the Chinese foreign minister because he wasn't walking in the right direction. The Chinese foreign minister actually grabbed hold of him by the shoulders and moved him on the red carpet. It was quite incredible.
It's just so bad. He looked so out of place,
Yes.
towing the line behind Xi Jinping, who I'm very impressed with, actually. Right, so just finishing on we saw all the people running in that clip we just showed. I wonder if they were chasing the cat. We couldn't see. That's for another time. The territory situation is pretty bad, though, isn't it, for Ukraine now? What's this picture telling us?
Well, that's from the Institute from the Study of War, so I wouldn't take that too much to heart. That is, of course, run by Victoria Nuland's sister-in-law, the Institute for the Study of War. But it's pretty on the key there. So where you can see those areas there, there is no doubt whatsoever that the Ukrainians are losing territory. Up near Zaporizhia is the place where you should look at the moment, near Zaporizhia city. The Russians have taken an area up there that is only 8 miles away now from Zaporizhia city in that area. And the Ukrainians are flooding it with men to try and stop that happening. And another place to look out for is around about in the center of that map is a place called Konstantinivka, which at the moment is a fierce battle going on there. And of course, they're closing in once they get control of Konstantinivka. And once again, there is another road of death where they're making a cauldron. There's one road in, one road out, and Ukrainians are getting slaughtered. And the trouble is, of course, Kramatorsk, of course, is right there, and so is Slavyansk. And once those two cities are captured, then the Russians will have the whole of the Donbass to themselves.
Which is what they wanted. And Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump when he met him in Alaska, we want this, and if you don't give it to us, we'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to be taken in a hurry. And everybody keeps saying, oh, well, Russians are moving very, very slowly. They don't need to move anywhere. Ukraine are flooding into the area to take on the Russians, and they're just picking them off as they go.
So the question that we always come to is timing. How much longer do you think this conflict will continue?
Well, around about August of this year, the Ukrainians are going to have a real dilemma because they're not going to have enough men to be able to patch the holes. Remember that they are losing around about 1,500 men a day. Now, people turn around and say, that's absolutely incredible. It can't be right. You have to remember that the front line is around 1,000 kilometers long. So for every square kilometer, Ukraine are losing 1.5 men per day per kilometer. That's not an exorbitant amount. It is because the line is so long, because they are stretched so thin, that very soon I calculated that by August 2026, Ukraine will have to give up quite a few areas. The only thing that is keeping the Russians off at the moment is the Ukrainian ability to keep flying lots of drones. Once that gets denigrated, and of course, the Russians are bombing the railway lines and the factories now to reduce their capacity to do that, then you're going to find areas get swamped very, very quickly, Lembit.
But the outcome will be inevitable, won't it?
Oh, there's no other outcome apart from a Russian victory. And even if we were, this is why, Lembit, having looked at the war, the Americans are not going to put boots on the ground there because they'll be coming home in coffins. And it's the same with the French, same with the Germans, same with the British. We are all this nonsense about we must be ready for 2027. We stand directly behind Ukraine. Yes, we stand 5,000 miles behind Ukraine.
If I have the good fortune to meet the occupant, the main occupant of this and the other buildings, what message should I give Donald Trump from you, Warren?
Basically, get some new advisors because your advisors aren't cutting it, and certainly fire Keith Kellogg, whose daughter actually runs an NGO inside Ukraine, repatriating the bodies of dead American soldiers fighting inside Ukraine that go and attack Russia. And of course, they promise their families a lot of money, rather like they do with the Ukraine soldiers, and of course, they never pay up either.
Thank you so much. Where can we get more of Warren Thornton? I'll tell you one place, of course, here on Unprecedented TV. You'll find a huge back catalogue, always being added to with Warren Thornton. Where else can we get your pearls of wisdom?
WarrenThornton.com, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And of course, on Sunday nights, it's a special occasion because of 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. We have the wonderful Lembit Öpik from Unprecedented.
Thank you so much, though. I have to tell you, if you're watching this live, I was a bit delayed by the snow. Who knew? The very rare event of snow. I was clambering across it. I thought I'd rather be late than hospitalized, so I did take my time.
One other thing I would like to say, Lembit, with the snow, very simply, everybody is talking about Kiev and how terrible it is. But what they've been doing is because they're cut off from all the electric and it's very, very cold out there. And very simply, all the generators that Poland sent them to keep the power back on, of course, have been sold on the black market to various rich people. So they're keeping the nightclubs and the strip clubs going with these generators. And of course, the normal people. Yeah.
The strip clubs.
Yeah, Klitschko, the Klitschko brothers. Klitschko is the mayor of Kiev. His brother owns various brothels and various strip clubs inside Kiev and Odessa. And of course, very simply, they're keeping the lights on there, no problem at all. So if you want to keep warm, get yourself to a Klitschko nightclub.
You worry me. You sound like you're speaking from personal experience, Warren Thornton. But I know it's not true. You're right at the other end of the world at the moment.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's Warren Thornton. And you will see his commentary also. I have to tell you, if you go behind his paywall, I've seen it. He makes the most remarkable and devastating analysis of the most recent files from Epstein. And it's behind the paywall because the facts, as he sees them, are really quite shocking. And actually, it's a very disturbing revelation. But then if you're into truth, sometimes you have to say uncomfortable things. Thanks so much to Warren. Thanks to the team. Thanks to you. Well, I'll keep you updated if you're watching this live on my progress here in Washington. In the meantime, let's just be honest about it. It doesn't look good for Ukraine. I don't personally think that the situation is going to improve much for Volodymyr Zelensky. And then isn't it interesting that those photo opportunities that used to be a dime a dozen, use a US phrase, are thin on the ground indeed. Maybe people like the esteemed leader of the Labour government, Keir Starmer, are realizing that hanging around with other unpopular people doesn't make you any more popular. I'm Lembit Öpik. That was a broadcast from Washington, D.C. in the United States of America for Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. Have a good day.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.